And so in those dark moments, I typically would ask myself, like, why? Typically it was, why was I back here? Like, oh, here I am again. Like, okay, I get this. I think I've walked around this tree before. Like, I've gone here, circle, circle, circle. And it's like, okay, I keep being chucked back down here. There must be a reason why, or there must be like something down here. And so what is that thing? And so I use those experiences, kind of like what you said, like, what do I need to learn down here? And I don't know why. It's one of those things that just sort of happened because probably because I was in there so often. I had to do something with my time in there. And it literally just like, I almost feel as though I could see parts of my heart and my soul and my psyche that were flashing red. And it was like, oh, what is that? And so for me, it was like finding this wound that I talked about. Like I felt like a 3-year-old waiting for his mom and his dad to come love him and save him. I felt like that until I was like 26 years old, and I was just a kid in a man's body. And that was because I was in the dark space, because I was operating in that. It was like, it almost takes you down a layer into like truth, as you say, like real truth, like what is genuinely here. Because when we're all like sunshine and roses, like, no, it looks pretty good. But for me, a lot of my authenticity came from being able to see like what's hiding in the shadows.
Curt, what's up, man?
Nice to meet you.
It's great to meet you, bro.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. I'm super excited to get into it.
Dude, I'm super stoked too, man. I'm loving your content and the skinny that you talk about, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. Man, your energy, it's crazy.
That's awesome.
So good.
Super fly hairdo, man. Yeah, absolutely.
There's so much, dude. There's so much with the hair, to be honest. This was like a weird inner work thing that I used to like slick it. It was perfect. And in this process of a huge failure I went through, a coach called me out. He's like, oh, just go like this to your hair. And I was like, no, never. And he's like, aha. So there's like this perfectionism thing that came in. I grew it out. I just didn't put stuff in it anymore. Dude, it's this whole thing. It's crazy.
That's awesome. That's great. That's awesome. Man, I'm super stoked, dude, to hear like your story and your journey and your background and just what how you've been growing and what you've been learning and stuff. So thank you for taking the time with me today, bro. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah, I'm excited.
Can you share, and if you wouldn't mind going back as early as you would feel comfortable going, like, how was your childhood? How are how was your relationship with your parents? And like, just even that beginning, and just kind of share the arc, your story, your journey of getting healthier emotionally and mentally and everything.
Yeah, I would love to. This is so important for me just to share because I see in other men an unwillingness to share because it's not safe. And so by me sharing what I've gone through, and it's my story and other people might relate or not, I think it gives license to people to share. And it also, I think, gives hope because I got pretty dark. So perhaps the most formative thing happened most early in my story, which is that my father left my mother and myself and my baby sister. And I was 3 years old, and I just found this out, had an affair and moved in with this woman. And so that left a big scar with me. I had been told over the last couple of years by my grandfather, my mother, that there would be times when I would ask them, if I can just be good enough, will daddy come back? And that's really how my life played out. If I can just be perfect, then maybe people will like me. It's the classic nice guy thing. It's all of that. It's perfectionism. And so the sort of the extra part of the story is that, like, obviously my mother was crushed. That is just terrible to have happened to you. And I can't even imagine what she must have been feeling like to be left with 2 kids, one of whom, my sister, was like 3 months old. It was just insane to have to deal with all that. And so she was crushed. She was doing her best. She did a great job with us growing up, but then she got sick. She got very sick, on death's door, if you will. And she was gone from my life for probably most of my formative years into adolescence. And so I really missed the connection to the feminine, sort of looking back on it now. And in my head, I just sort of went like, well, she's probably going to die one day. And that really stopped me from connecting with her for a long time. And only recently have we started reconnecting. But I eventually had to go live with my dad because she was in treatment. She was in hospital. She was all these places. And, we moved around a lot. Probably, I think 2 years was the longest I ever stayed in one school. So it was hard to keep friends. Let's say we moved provinces, we moved, hundreds of miles away. And that was okay for a while until high school, obviously, when things were harder to fit in. And I just sort of shut down. So I didn't have very many friends. I didn't have very many close friends. And along the way, I didn't even know any of this was sort of festering inside me, much like you suggested. Like, what do you mean emotions? Like, I am just a rock. I will take everything. I will be harder than you. I will be colder than you, and I will win. And that's what my sort of modus operandi was in relationship. And then, what it ended up being upon reflection was that I wanted someone who could be bigger than me, who could be stronger than me, to take care of me, because I felt like the 3-year-old whose mom and dad couldn't be there for him. And so this played out in me acting out in relationship in a way that was testing the other person, almost to prove to myself that, like, look, I know everyone's going to leave. Nobody sticks around me. And especially if I am hard and mean and terrible. And it just proved to me like, oh yeah, I guess I can only trust myself. So that led me to a really wonderful dynamic relationship with my now wife. I don't know what it was. I think we so-called trauma bonded, if you will, at first. Our inner child, both of our inner childs really connected with one another. And for some reason, I am so grateful for this, we stayed growing on the same path. So we had our first son in 2013. I think I was 23, almost 24 at the time. And it was terrible. Like, I hated it. I was so bad as a father. I was overwhelmed. There was so much lack of control in my life that made me feel lost and overwhelmed and terrible. And I was mean. Again, I was yelling. I was angry. It was the only thing I could feel, as a lot of men I talk to, is anger. And it got so bad that something needed to change. I couldn't grow up being the father that I was being and the husband I was being. And it was really the impetus for trying to do something else. And I don't know what that looked like. I had no tools. I had no words. I had no emotions. I didn't know what to do. But somewhere along the way, this is, I guess, my whole story. Somewhere along the way, I found meditation in business. And my use for meditation was, well, maybe I can be more productive in business. That would be cool. And I wasn't even thinking about like, oh, maybe it'll make me a better dad or a better husband. And I started meditating. Within about 10 days, I was approached by my son. He did something that I would normally yell at him for, and I didn't. And I found, as they say, the gap between stimulus and response. And I was like, oh, you can actually like control your emotions and not scream at people. This is mind blowing. And from there, that really kicked off this journey, which has been, 8+ years now of just trying to figure myself out. And so, yeah, I've spent a lot of time diving deep, meditating, mindfulness, journaling, breath work, men's group, all these kind of things to get closer to what was it that made me hurt so bad. And there's a few sort of basic wounds. And so that's been my journey now. I'm working on those things, and I have really, truly transformed myself from being an angry, miserable, childish father to a calm, confident leader. And that's been life-changing. It's been so, so wonderful. I can feel it in my heart now. And that was a big change. So, there's been multiple points along the way where I felt new things, and I could be happy to dive into that along the way. But that sort of brings us up to today, where I've got 3 kids, been married almost 10 years, and things are mostly fantastic. And I can deal with it when they're not, which is the biggest change.
Bro, I'm so proud of you, man. Wow.
Thank you.
That's amazing, dude. Seriously, like it's one of the I'm 4 years into this, so I'm much more recent or newer on my journey than you. But dude, I just remember sitting in my counselor's office and him dropping those 2 words on my lap, the whole feelings and emotions. And I mean, it was like getting throat punched, man. It was terrifying, right? I mean, it was
Right.
like, I mean, you want to talk about getting hit by a Mack truck of like 10 Mack trucks of different anger, sadness, disappointment, little bit of like excitement or a glimmer of hope, but I don't know what's going on yet. Like, and so for you, dude, I mean, you had some pretty intense stuff very intense stuff that you had to work through. And dude, this is why, like, I tell people, like, dude, emotional work is not for the faint of heart, man. It's not. And the thing is, it's not sexy. It's not like, oh, it's exciting. It's not, I do Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and like love going to that's like part of my therapy,
Yeah.
right? Going to, like, I love it, but like, who's excited? Oh, emotional work. Yay. Let me, you know what I mean? Like, and
Yeah.
so, dude, I just want to give you huge props, man. Thank you for the 8 years of you doing a deep dive into some of those emotional injuries and emotional hurts, so that you can get the emotional healing, so that you can be the man, husband, father, leader, influencer that you are today, to help out all the rest of us. In fact, one of the quotes that's in my podcast all the time: emotionally healthy people help heal other people emotionally. Right. And you're
Yes.
like the perfect example of this guy who's put in the blood, sweat, and tears of emotional growth and emotional healing. And now we're all benefiting from your journey. So thank you, dude,
Man,
for
yeah, thank
doing that.
you. Yeah, thank you. And you're totally right. Like it's not the sexiest thing, but man, is there a more impactful thing to do? I think not. Right. And I like what you say, because the opposite is also true. And that's hurt people hurt people. And when you're a father, the people around you are your children. Like, are you really willing to do that when you know that to be true? Like, work on yourself, dad. That's what I am saying, is like, you want to be a better dad? You want to be a better husband? It doesn't start with tactics or tricks or tips. It actually starts with you becoming a better man. It starts with you becoming a more whole, healed human being, so that you don't need the crutch of tips or tactics or whatever it is. You just can feel into it. You can naturally be there. And man, one thing I want to say, just to like maybe resonate with some other people, is like, it got really dark for me, like really, really dark. I was at a point where I didn't just think, I knew my kids and wife would be better off without me. And for me, that didn't mean leaving, because like I wasn't going to live with that guilt and shame. That was like, maybe I have to kill myself. Like, that's how deep it was. And I only bring that up because I want to make guys aware that, like, maybe you had a worse childhood than I did. Maybe you were abused, maybe, or whatever. You're like, oh, this guy didn't go through that much. But when it comes to that point where there's no hope left, when you feel hopeless, I don't know what it was. I had this glimmer of hope that said, maybe just try one more day. Just try one more day. Cause like, you kind of done it before. Who knows? Maybe it'll work. Whatever that voice was, saved me. And I have now gone from hopeless to living a beautiful life that feels so good. And so I just want to like make sure that anyone listening to this who's in the darkness right now realizes that it is literally never the right answer. It may feel, you may know it. Like, I knew it. I knew I was bad. I knew that I would be better off. They would be better off without me, but you have to keep going. I am proof that hopelessness doesn't always lead to despair and blackness forever. And I just want to be sure everyone knows that wherever you are, whatever your history is, like, I have seen myself and so many of the men that I've worked with in men's group and whatever, come through really, really dark times. And so it's not sexy, like you say, but it can be done, and it will change your life.
That's right. Love it, Curt. That's great. And thank you again for your vulnerability. I call it the hell phase. And a lot of folks on my podcast have heard this story. For 2 years, I was hardcore suicidal. 2 years, every waking moment, like, it was my fantasy. It was like I couldn't stop thinking about it, fantasizing, dreaming, planning, hoping, praying, right? Just nonstop. And man, by God's grace, man, I never followed through. And I still, to this day, done a lot of prayer, a lot of reflection and stuff, have not figured out what happened. But 2 years, almost to the day that I went into this super dark tunnel, of really dark place, it's like I woke up the next day and all of a sudden like I could see color. Like it and I don't, again, other than just God's grace, I don't know. I didn't do anything different. I didn't. It's like I woke up and it's like there's two things that happened. One, I could see color. Like I could see, wow, this the sky is blue. I haven't seen that for a couple of years. And like I could see shade. Like it was everything else was before was black and white and gray and also I heard silence for the first time in a couple of years, right? Because for 2 years straight, it's all the voices, right? All the voices going on. Dude, the scripts, man. I had scripts for
Oh yeah.
days, right?
Oh
All
yeah.
the scripts and stuff. And so, this one is truth, capital T, truth. So truth is something that I held on to. For me, I love Jesus, and so for me, it was God's word. But then the other part that I had never experienced before was grace. I had not for me or for other people. I
Mm,
was this hardcore religious, judgmental, uh,
yeah.
very legalistic, just because I had never experienced for me God's grace before. And so now, like 2 years of being in this very, very dark spot, like, wow, man, because I was hoping, praying, and fully expecting God was gonna strike me down at any moment. Like, please, like praying, God, this world will
Mm,
be better. Like, strike me down. And like you said, man, it's thank God that he allowed me to just one more day, stick it out one more day, one more day. And I think that you're right. Like when dudes talk about this stuff, it can help normalize some of these dark places that so many of us experience. And to realize, oh, okay, well maybe I'm not nuts. Maybe it's part of the kind of the human experience. In fact, check this out. One of my
exactly.
counselor, and my counselor's like, I'm like, hey, he's like, how are you doing? I'm like, man, I'm sucking today, counselor. And he's like, okay, so what's the deal? And I'm like, well, man, give me the tips. Give me the tips. What are the 3 tips I can do to get out of the valley? And he's like, why? I'm like, what do you mean why? He's like, well, why do you want to get out of your valley? I'm like, because it's a valley. Like, what, McFly, what are you talking about? He
Yeah.
said, Noble, he said, I can tell the way you're talking about it. In your mind, your valley is negative. He's like, why is your valley negative? What if God's trying to teach you something in the valley and you try to get out of it before you've learned that lesson and you're going to go back in because you haven't learned that yet lesson? And I'm like, it just blew my mind. Like,
Mm,
wait, what can I learn in a valley? I'm so busy trying to avoid it and get out of it instead of sitting in it and like, okay, well, wait a second. All right. So yeah, the colors aren't the most pleasant, but maybe I can sit in here and learn some things, right? Like, what's been your experience? What's some lessons that you have learned in your valleys?
man, I was literally going to ask you that question, so I'm glad you went there. Would love to hear your answer too. Man, pretty much everything. Like pretty much everything. None of this would have happened. None of my growth and healing would have happened if it were not having been chucked into those valleys. And honestly, it was my kids. Like a lot of it was my kids, and they triggered me, not because they did anything, but because my reaction to what they did just triggered me so much, because they were asking for something that I never got, which is love, attention, someone to be there for them. And I was like, I can't give that to you. Like, get out of here. I get really mad and controlling. And so in those dark moments, I typically would ask myself, like, why? Typically it was, why was I back here? Like, oh, here I am again. Like, okay, I get this. I think I've walked around this tree before. Like, I've gone here, circle, circle, circle. And it's like, okay, I keep being chucked back down here. There must be a reason why, or there must be like something down here. And so, what is that thing? And so, I use those experiences, kind of like what you said, like, what do I need to learn down here? And I don't know why. It's one of those things that just sort of happened because probably because I was in there so often. I had to do something with my time in there. Um, and it literally just like, I almost feel as though I could see parts of my heart and my soul and my psyche that were flashing red. And it was like, oh, what is that? And so for me, it was like finding this wound that I talked about. Like I felt like a 3-year old waiting for his mom and his dad to come love him and save him. I felt like that until I was like 26 years old, and I was just a kid in a man's body. And that was because I was in the dark space, because I was operating in that. It was like, it almost takes you down a layer into like truth, as you say, like real truth, like what is genuinely here. Because when we're all like sunshine and roses, like, no, it looks pretty good. But for me, a lot of my authenticity came from being able to see like what's hiding in the shadows. Like, who am I really? What am I running from? What pain lives in there that I can almost alchemize into gold? And I think once you do that the first time, and for me, that was kind of like meditation. It was getting to know like my mind and the scripts, like you say, like, I'm an idiot. You're an idiot. Why are you being so bad? Why can't you do anything right? Why are you such a failure? Why are you back here again? Getting to know that was like, oh, if I can just do that here, I wonder where else I can do that. And so I just got very curious. And so like the answer doesn't sound very good when I say like everything. I learned everything in that time and in that place, but that's true. Like I haven't learned that much when things aren't as good or aren't as bad. And in a way, and I don't mean this in sort of like a perverse self-harming sort of way. Like I love being triggered now. Maybe not in the moment, maybe, an hour or two after. It's like, oh, thank goodness I get to go back to the dark place where I know the answers lie. And I think that's really important, to give yourself that hope and to give yourself that, like you say, the grace to know that you can handle it. And I think what you said earlier, like this is the hardest work. Like nobody wants to sit with their emotions, but don't strong humans do hard things. That was something a coach said to me once, and it just blew my mind. I was like, I don't want to feel this. And she's like, oh, don't strong men do hard things? And I was like, man, now I got to do it. That was like giving me permission to do the hard things. So yeah, I don't know what else to say other than like literally everything that's good and that's sort of come to me has been because of my ability to sit with that.
So thanks for sharing, bro. That is awesome. I'm not exactly sure why I'm getting all emotional, but I really appreciate that. Maybe it's because, there's a neat quote, you can impress people with your mountaintops, but you can impact people with your valleys.
Hmm.
And, there's a lot of, I feel like a lot of connection and richness in the dark places, which it sounds crazy, man, to even just say out loud. In jujitsu, so here's a jujitsu analogy. So for those who don't know Brazilian jiu-jitsu, it's combat cuddling or aggressive
Good one.
yoga. A couple ways that I'll talk about it. But it's, for me, I'm bigger. I'm a pretty big guy, 6'1", 250, and I'm bigger than most people that I roll with. And so I will always start in the weakest position, and I'll let them, be top mount or side control or back mount, whatever position they want to start in, and let them work kind of their offensive game. And then if at some point I'm able to sweep them or whatever, get on top and get into submission, great. But I, like, for the past literally 4.5 years I've been doing jujitsu. For 4 of those years, I have started on my back. So I'm very, very, very comfortable in very weak positions and very uncomfortable positions. And the cheesy quote, I have become very comfortable being uncomfortable. I'll even let him get start the chokes, start some of the arm bars, start some of the different things, and see if I can work my way out of it and stay calm and peaceful, right? Stay mindful, stay present. Okay, where's my breathing at? Okay, how are my emotions right now? Where am I present, right? That's why I love jujitsu. Like,
Hmm.
you have to be present and mindful and in control of your emotions. A lot of the white belts, we call it the white belt spaz, they'll show up, right, and just start freaking out and muscle and aggression, right? Because it's the fight, flight, or freeze, survival mechanism
Hmm.
kicks in. And I'll tell, dude, 90% of the time I'm telling these white belts, I'm like, they're half my age, they're younger, they're stronger, they're faster, they're better, all this stuff than me. But here I could have a conversation with you while I'm doing jits because I've learned how to stay calm in those uncomfortable positions. So back to the dark place, it's like, if we learn, if we get ours, and I love what you said about, man, if we just get emotionally healthy, we don't need the tips and tricks, right? I don't need the tips and tricks of jujitsu per se now, because I'm so comfortable in the dark places of jujitsu. And the other thing too, I talk about some of the upper belts, right? They would destroy me. They'd kill me. The purple belts, the brown belts, the black belts, they'd destroy me. Well, now, because I've spent 4 years on my back in the weak positions, man, let's go. Like black belts, brown belts. I'm now, not that they still don't beat me, not that I don't tap out, but I don't get anxiety going
Mm.
into that dark place. I don't have the fear. I don't have or I need to be in control of this role. Man, I can flow. I'll let them be on top. I'll let them try to get the submissions on me and stuff, but I'm comfortable because I've spent so much time in that dark place that now it's like, okay, what can I learn? Like, it's for me, it's like this huge learning opportunity. Matter of fact, in our house, since my daughter's been 4, she's 14 now. We started to ask her when she was 4, Amor. I speak to her in Spanish. I'm half Spanish, even though I look like a big giant white guy. Um, my mom's a little 4'10" Hispanic lady, so she raised me speaking Spanish. And so I asked her. I said, Amor, when she was 4, how did you fail today? Right? And if she couldn't come up with an answer, okay, Amor, let's go fail. Let's go fail at something. And then I celebrated. Yeah, great job, great failure. Okay, now what did you learn, Amor? What aprendiste? What did you learn from the failure? Because I want to reframe in jujitsu. That's the only way you learn is through failure, right? I learn very little. I don't want to say I don't learn anything when I tap somebody, but I learn a whole lot more when I get tapped and when someone's balling me up, right? But the same thing, like you were saying, like I think the Valley is a PhD program. It's a
Oh yeah.
amazing learning opportunity that oh man, like, and I love what you said. It's like, okay, God, like, man, what do you have me here this time? Like, what cool insight, discovery, lesson, epiphany am I supposed to learn this time around? You know what I mean? Um, Love how you describe that, Curt. That is so awesome. And so that we don't have to have anxiety or the negative. Like, this is something I tell a lot of my EQ training. I tell folks is like, look, emotions are not good or bad.
Right.
Emotions are just data. It's just information. It's the dashboard of your car. Is your dashboard of your car bad? Is there like, oh, those are the good dials and those are the bad dials? Like, is the E on your fuel gauge, is that bad? No, it's great. Like, thank God we have an E so that, oh man, I guess I need to probably go to the gas station. Well, if we like if but that's the thing, is like, if we don't have that emotional awareness, that self-awareness, like, man, I'm feeling my gas tank is getting low. I need to pray. I need to meditate. I need to breathe. I need to get some family time. I need to get some alone time. I need to get some jujitsu time, right? Whatever that is. How have you grown your awareness throughout your journey? And what has made the biggest impact on your awareness?
Man, that, you know what, it's so important because I think just like really solidifying that tie-in, like you just mentioned, the faster and the more intelligently you can be aware of what you're feeling, the longer time frame you have to see it coming and deal with it. And so I think, just personally, I don't know if there's sort of like science behind this or whatever, but I think when most men snap in anger, for example, it's simply because it finally has become big enough that they can feel it, because they're so out of line with their awareness. And so I imagine a lot of feelings, not all, because you get cut off in traffic and suddenly it's just like, oh, I'm triggered. But a lot of feelings have this crescendo. And if you can notice it way back here before it's at the top of the mountain peak where you just blow up, man, it's easier to deal with. So how I have done that started with meditation, regular meditation practice. For me, it's been mostly daily for like, I don't know, 7 years now. And that's been so impactful. I've tried all sorts of stuff. I've used Headspace, I've used Waking Up, I've done my own meditations, I've done tapping, I've done body scans, I've done breath work is another big one. Actually, maybe that's a quick segue into getting into your body, because the better you can get into your body, which jujitsu, fantastic. Exercise at the gym, fantastic. Yoga, walking, even. What I have done is breath work, which could be like a Wim Hof style. It could just be low, slow breathing to get in touch. And it's part of meditation often when you're focusing on the breath. But there is a type of breathing that I'm trained in, called conscious connected breathing. And what that does is it's like an hour long, almost like a meditation session, but you breathe intentionally and sort of deeply. It's almost like an intentional hyperventilation. But what it does is it gets you out of your head into your body, and you just feel everything. like it's nothing but the wisdom of your body. And there's so much trauma and pain that gets stuck in our physical body, our nervous system, that breath work for me has been phenomenal to release and to learn and to get these like clarity moments and insights. So meditation, breath work, journaling has been another huge one. For me, it's about clearing my mind, because the clearer my mind is, the more able I am to then see the physical feelings coming up inside of me, because I'm not so up here. It's like, oh, thank goodness I'm relaxed. Oh, awareness in the body. Why is my chest tight? Okay, I'm anxious. Why am I anxious? And it's just like, you get to go through that. And that's why I just do like brain dumps. Every night I'll just write everything that happened in the day. What do I feel? How did it feel? What happened? All this kind of stuff. And if I need to, I'll just pick up a journal. I've got like probably, I can see 4 journals right now on my desk because I just pick whatever I'm feeling up and just write something. And that has helped me get so much more clear. And I use it as a tool. So I also ask myself, why? Why, all the way to the base level, ground floor, whatever, bedrock. And then it's like, okay, a lot of answers lie in there that I can then let go of. And I've also used journaling to do inner child work, to sort of talk to my inner child and become more clear with what's really going on. Because at least in my experience, finding out what the emotion is, what the physical sensation is most of the battle. But when it comes to relieving that, at least in my experience, I like to know sort of like why I might be feeling that. And so those 3 tools have probably been the best. And then honestly, man, just intention. Like, I just want to know. Now that I know that it exists, it's like, how could you not be curious about your own body? How could you not be curious about like your heart and feeling into your heart space and like feeling around the back of your heart? Like, what's back there? Oh, that's different than being open in the front. I wonder, how does that feel? And it's like, man, there is so much to ask that, just being generally curious and wanting to know about the world and myself, like, yeah, I'm going to go there, of course. And maybe, like we were talking about at the beginning, just letting people know that you can do that, maybe that's enough for them to be like, oh, I wonder what that looks like for me. Because you don't know what you don't know, right? One of my favorite quotes is, as the island of knowledge grows, so too do the shores of ignorance, which is just understanding that if I keep carrying on and learning more and more, it doesn't mean I know anymore. It means I realize that I know less in a ratio to what I don't know. And so like, I just like sharing things that other people might not have experienced before, other people might not have like taken the time to go deep on. And I'm just trying to think, what else have I done? I mean, I've done everything. I exercise regularly. I've actually done jujitsu as well, but I was one of those white belts and then they closed everything down here in Canada and I haven't been able to get back. So yeah, the strength and like the power, and why aren't you getting choked out by my strength and muscles when you're like way smaller than me, bro? So yeah, I would have loved to have more guys like you who are just like, bro, chill. But yeah, there's a lot. Embodiment practices, yoga, everything like that.
That's excellent. Excellent. I think that's such a great point too. There's a book, and I've read little pieces of it, but I haven't read the whole thing yet. The Body Keeps the Score, and I've heard great things about it. I have not read it myself yet, but I've heard it's a tremendous book. But I've got just started uh, with a ninja massage lady. My wife found this ninja massage lady, and she's got 32 years she's been doing massage. I'm like, holy Hannah Montana, man. This lady is like God's gift to like massages. And so I'm like, well, how many bodies have you massaged in the past 32 years? She said, probably over 30,000. And I'm like, because for me, something else that's a fascinating concept for me is mastery. And I'm like, this lady has got to be right, that whole 10,000 hours, right? So I'm like, oh, I can't wait. And she's like, oh yeah, no, but like I can totally tell someone's calf or someone's quad or someone's, like, she's like, I can totally tell where there's been emotional injury before. And I'm like, what are you talking? She's like, oh yeah, dude, to your point, right? The body holds that stuff. Or she's like, I'll be massaging a shoulder and all of a sudden someone will start crying, right? And not from pain, not from physical pain, right? Yes. But from emotion. Oh, it was stored. The hair had some sort of injury. Right? And so just the concept that the body stores emotions. This is a huge epiphany the guy gave me recently, about 2 or 3, 4 months ago, working with one of my executive coaching clients. And he was having a tough time. He's a newbie, he was just like me 4 years ago, no concept of feelings and emotions. I said, look, bro, because he's this big, tough, guy and older, 50, 60 years old and just big leader and stuff. And I said, look, bro, I said, look, the purpose of emotional health, emotional intelligence is not to be warm, fuzzy, kumbaya, bathing in essential oils, right? I mean, if that's how you roll, that's great.
Yeah.
I said, but dude, it's so that you are a better leader, a better husband, a better father, a better man, a better person, a better, et cetera, et cetera. And and this is a huge insight that's really made a lot of sense to me and a lot of people since I've been sharing it. If you The whole concept of if you name it, you can tame it, right? If you're not aware of your emotions, again, whether you do it through prayer, through meditation, through journaling, however you do it, what happens is all those unnamed emotions are just bouncing around in our bodies, and they become emotional knots in our
Mhm.
emotional muscles. And if we keep on, I've got a PhD in stuffing and avoiding, right? I could write
Yeah.
encyclopedias on how to stuff and avoid. I said, what happens is every time that let's say it's anger, or this one's sadness, and this one's frustration, and this one's disappointment, and this one's heartbreak, and this is whatever, right? All the different things. If that keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed, at some point that emotional knot is going to turn into an emotional Charlie horse, and now you're going to get emotionally triggered and emotionally hijacked, and nothing productive happens when we're emotionally hijacked.
Man, can I give you a quick analogy here? So
Please.
this is my version of that. I like to say, imagine that you've just eaten a gigantic hamburger, and your hamburger is an emotion, and it goes down in your stomach. But the thing is, your digestion has stopped working. And that's what we do when we repress. We don't feel it; doesn't actually move through our body, and it kind of sits in your gut. This hamburger sort of just this heavy weight in your gut, and you're kind of like ignoring it because you don't know what else to do. And days or weeks, months, for some guys, years go by. And what is it going to do in there? It's just going to rot. This hamburger is going to rot. It's going to fester. And one day you're at the office, right? And you're walking down the office. Somebody comes out of their office door. They didn't see you. They're turned around and they accidentally hit you in the gut with their elbow. What's going to happen? This is the trigger, by the way. In this analogy, that, little elbow, that's the trigger in the external world. What's going to happen to the hamburger? Well, in my opinion, not to be too graphic, but you're going to crap it out all over everyone because suddenly it's moving in your digestion and you've never dealt with it before, and it's rotting and it's got to go somewhere. So it's going to explode out of your body all over everyone around you. And that's, to me, how I feel about repressed emotions without being able to name it to tame it, feel it to heal it. That's my version of what you were just saying, man. And I think it's so important, like all of this work, empathy, emotions, communicating in a compassionate way. It goes to leadership in business. It goes to leadership in, your job, or if you're a teacher, it goes to your relationship with your wife. It goes into like relationship with your kids. I can't tell you the amount of times I say to my kids, "Hey, I see you're really angry right now. Oh, it looks like you're disappointed. Oh man, you must be so frustrated you didn't get that thing at school today," right? And it's teaching them the emotional intelligence that I never got taught, that you never got taught, by simply naming what they feel. And when you can do that in like a high stakes conflict relationship, for example, like you got to have a fight with your wife, instead of blaming or shaming or shutting down or numbing, it's like, "Hey, I hear what's going on for you right now. That makes so much sense. I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed hearing this from you because I'm feeling a little bit like you might be blaming me. And, like based on my lifestyle, I've told you before in my childhood, I don't like feeling blamed. And so I'm going to hold the space for you. But I just want to be sure that that I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable." Like, man, does that diffuse a crisis. And just simply being honest and open. And like you say, not to just like swim in this wonderful version of like emotion, but just to note. And then everyone gets to see where you're coming from. Because one thing I've learned, emotions aren't wrong. And so if I say I'm feeling upset, you can't say like, "No, you're not, you moron. Like, I'm right, actually." It's like, no, 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 no. I didn't say what you did. I didn't say what I did. I say I am feeling a thing that cannot be wrong because I'm feeling it. It's simply fact. And so in all of these relationships in my entire life, becoming emotionally intelligent and being able to name what they are and then like state them as fact, man, that has changed everything, literally everything.
That's so massive. That's so massive. And so there's a great quote. It makes me think of pain and bitterness that's not transformed will be transferred somewhere else in your life. Pain and bitterness that's not transformed will be transferred somewhere else in your life. So the opportunity to be able to talk about it and share it helps to, again, massage that emotional knot or move that emotional hamburger through your digestive system so it doesn't get stuck there. And it also, something else that's been transformational for me in my emotional growth journey is my triggers. So I used to have the frequency and the intensity of my triggers has dropped by 90 to 95%. So I have way less triggers now. And now, when I'd go Incredible Hulk mode, right, in zero point 0.3 seconds flat, now I may go to a 2 or a 3. And on an occasion, in fact, I just had a level 10 trigger about a month ago, but the huge blessing was now my 10 now, which is the first time it's happened in probably a year, maybe even 2 years that I've been triggered to a 10. It wasn't a 10 Hulk mode, it was a 10 hardcore introspection thing,
Right.
which again, it was very, very unpleasant, very uncomfortable. But the point is the frequency and intensity of my triggers has dropped exponentially. And like you said, just being aware and having the courage to express the emotion that I'm feeling safely and non-threateningly to my wife, my daughter, friend, colleague, business partner, whatever, is game changer. Right? Before, like, otherwise it's like you're playing, you like, I have to have ESP to figure out what you're thinking. And I have no
Totally.
idea what Curt's thinking, right? But if you could just say, hey, Curt, man, you don't mind, bro, like, where are you at? Like, just tell me, what are you feeling? Like, we're going into this business deal or we're going into this project together. Like, just do a quick check-in, man. Where are you at? Let's talk about that. Not la la la. Like, I don't want to hear it. Like, no. Let's right, because the other thing I've learned is that emotions impact every single decision that we make, whether or not we're aware of it. And so, yeah, I love that, dude. That's so powerful. Okay, so kind of wrapping up here. What advice would you give to somebody that is either hasn't started their emotional growth journey yet, or maybe they just started, they're kind of newer in their emotional growth journey? What would you share with them? Insights, advice, encouragement, resources?
Yeah. So for me, in my groups with my guys, it's always to deepen the mindfulness practice, the awareness practice, prayer, meditation, yoga, journaling, like get that sorted. Because to me, the level of operation is like mindfulness leads to self awareness, and self awareness leads to authenticity. And that's, for me, that's like the almost like the end game, if you will. Like if you can show up as you truly are, that's a game changer. But it starts with noticing. What can you notice about yourself? What do you notice about the outside world? How deeply can you feel into each moment? And so that would be the first thing. The second thing is improve your vocabulary. I'm sure you've seen this before, the Gottman feeling wheel. That is a game changer, right? Have you got one right there? Oh, there you go. Exactly. Right. It's the feeling wheel. You go from like, oh, I'm kind of like whatever this chunk is, happy. It's like, okay, happy. Okay. Well, like, what does that even mean? It's like, oh no, I'm excited. I'm exhilarated. I'm, anticipatory. I'm whatever I am. And suddenly you get to like really feel what you feel just by adding words to it. Maybe the last thing, I mean, there's so much. The last thing I would share is this is way harder to do alone than it is with other people. And whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, I think for men's group is a wonderful place to do this work, whether it's like a community like yours, whether it's counseling, whether it's therapy, whether it's like just a men's group. Like I've got a couple men's groups, just to be with other guys doing it. It gives you license, like we're talking about in this podcast, to feel your feelings, to do your work, and to realize that you're not alone. And sorry to tell you, you're not as special as you think you are. You're not so unique that you get to like hold the burden, the weight of the world that nobody else has held. Like, bro, sit in a men's group meeting and you'll be like, wow, I am not special anymore. And that is so freeing. So those are probably like my three go-tos from the start.
Super powerful, Skinny bro. Thanks a million. How
Right
do
on.
we find you? How do we follow you? Tell us what your website, what projects you're working on. How do we keep track of you?
Yeah, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate this and that offer. Everything you can find us at Dad.Work. It's kind of like a .com, but instead it's actually .work. So Dad.Work, we have a free 14-day email course to become a better man and better dad. Just the stuff that I've used. We've got a couple of men's groups that we run, launching an online community in April, and we got a podcast too, the Dad.Work podcast, and everywhere they listen to podcasts. So yeah, Instagram is the last thing, and just search and you'll find us. But yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Curt, thank you, bro. This was amazing.
It's been fantastic, man. I'm
So
so pumped.
much, so much great, Skinny man. Again, thank you, dude, for all the work
Of
that
course,
you've
man. Thank
done.
you. Thank you. You're so like inspirational just with like your energy and the fact that you've come from where you've come. And I just wanted to say before we left, just want to honor you for showing up with the raw emotion and dealing with the feeling of the tears that came up from like why I have no idea. You didn't seem like you knew either. And dude, you were just real with it. And so thank you for that, because that was just like really freeing for me to trust you and to just know that like you're a sensitive, open-hearted man. So I appreciate that from you.
Thank you, Curt. Really appreciate that feedback, and so excited to continue to follow and learn from your journey and all the great things that you're doing. And God willing, we can stay in touch, and I can continue
Absolutely.
to learn more great stuff from you, man.